Hello and thanks for stopping by. This is Pit Fighter for the Sega Genesis, and I'm playing this game on a Mega SG console. The Genesis version was released in 1991 from Tengen. The Atari game it was based on was made by Atari Games, and that was 1990, which was pre-Mortal Kombat by 2 years. I make this a point because in Mortal Kombat, they use the same concept of digitizing actors for their game avatars. I think it's safe to say that that game did better than this one, but there were a few years of advancements between the two releases. Pit Fighter was released for the SNES and Genesis together, and they were comparable games to each other, roughly. The arcade version was certainly a little less digitized, or at least blocky. I used to play this one in the arcade a lot. Now, taking into account this was before Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter 2. When Street Fighter 2 hit, though, most other arcade games fell by the wayside for me. But before that, I used to play this one in the arcade all the time with my brothers. This was a go-to game for a while. You play a character in a pit fighting ring. You can choose from one of 3 characters. There's Buzz, who's a professional wrestler. There's Tai, who's a kickboxing champ. And Kato, who's a black belt. Basically, you choose the character you're most comfortable with. Like most fighting games, I suppose. Most videos that I see of this one online, people seem to use the wrestler character, but honestly, I tend to use that one the least. The other characters are just more comfortable to me. This one's all about timing, positioning yourself properly in the map, and just trying to keep your advantage. You have 1 life bar and only 3 continues, I believe, to make it through a bunch of stages, so you have to kind of get good at this one if you hope to beat it. There are 3 buttons in the Genesis controller. The A button is your punch, or it picks up an object if you're near one, like chairs, crates, sometimes weapons, whatever's there. You can also punch and kick while you're in the air. But there are also other combos that sort of happen here. Basically, if you're close and you're punching, it might be a different punch. If you're close and you're kicking, you could get a different kick depending on where you're placed. If you press the A and B button together, you could pick up a weapon, or a person, and BC will do a jump kick. You can press A and C to defend, but I find this one hard to press on a Genesis controller. It was easier in the arcade. A, B, and C performs a super move, and each character has 3, and depending on where you are in the game, it will potentially execute a different one. A, C, and down is a duck, but that's another one that's tough to execute. You can tap left on the controller, or right twice on the controller to evade. That's definitely a usable move. It's probably something you're going to want to get used to. So those are all the moves, all the controls. Now you're in a fight. There can be multiple opponents in a round, potentially. There'll be obstacles in there, or maybe weapons kicking around. Basically, this is you running around, trying to plan your attacks, and trying to execute as best as you can, while learning what your opponent can do. Definitely try to use the obstacles when you can. Anything you can do to hit an enemy from a distance is an advantage that you want. I have to say in this one, the special moves are a lot of fun. The wrestler, Buzz, he can do a pile driver, or a body slam, or even a headbutt. Tai, the kickboxer, will do a flying double kick, which is probably my favorite in the game. He can also do a spin kick or a roundhouse. And Kato, who's a black belt, he can do this lethal dragon punch, a flip kick, and a backhand. I think the goal of this game is pretty obvious. It's a pit fight tournament, and you want to win the tournament. There's a lot of motion on the screen with this one. Basically, there's a crowd all around the ring, and they're moving a lot. It's a pretty great effect, I think. It's flickering and moving, and maybe it's blocky and a little distracting, but I'm sure that's what it's supposed to do. It gives the game this interesting feeling of action, this immediacy, I think. Also, if you stumble into the crowd, or maybe are thrown into the crowd at the edges, the crowd will throw you back into the ring. For a digitized game, I think this one is decent enough, but the thing with this one is that it doesn't really scale well to a modern screen. I'm trying to play this one on a high-definition system. If you play it on a smaller screen, it's going to look better for sure. Here, when the character's a few inches tall on a screen, it just doesn't look as photorealistic as it would be if it was smaller. So as I'm recording this footage, I've got a small window on my computer that I can look at what's coming off the television. It looks better in that small window than it does up on the big screen next to me. Overall, it handles well enough. It handles like what I remember in the arcade for the most part. It's just that some of the button presses are not comfortable to hit on a controller. Most people use thumbs to hit the buttons, and trying to get your thumb over all these isn't that easy. I suppose if you use your fingers, it's probably easier, or if you use an arcade stick, I guess that'd probably be best here. I just don't have one. You can also play this one 2-player if you want, which is always nice. Well, that's all I have today for Pit Fighter for the Sega Genesis. Thanks for stopping by to take a look, and I'll catch you on another video.